Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being with us again this week. So this week, I have a fabulous woman, super smart and super, interesting, Sarah Anderson. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. So one of the things that I absolutely love that I was telling Sarah is that I love talking with people who are, teaching some concepts because they went through a search to, find solutions or whatever. So they experienced something. And after finding the solutions, they decided to share it with the world. I feel like this is so relatable. And, especially Sarah went through something similar to me. And I feel like she understands. So Sarah is in functional medicine, basically holistic healing. But I'm going to let her explain because she's going to do it way better than me. But what are you doing exactly now, Sarah?
So I'm a nurse practitioner, a licensed nurse practitioner, and I've worked in conventional medicine for about 20 years, 10 years as a nurse practitioner in cardiology, actually. And partway through my career journey, I started realizing that there seemed to be a root cause for all the different cardiac conditions I was seeing patients for, and it was inflammation. Inflammation is the basis of coronary artery disease, which causes heart attacks. Inflammation is the basis of atrial fibrillation, which is a very common heart arrhythmia. Inflammation is the basis of the development of peripheral vascular disease and other cardiac conditions that I've seen. And so I had this light bulb moment and I started researching inflammation and I came across functional medicine. And what functional medicine is its root cause medicine. So instead of saying you have high blood pressure, let's give you this blood pressure pill to lower your blood pressure. It's looking at the underlying root cause. Why is your blood pressure high? What does your diet look like? What toxins are you being exposed to? What does your sleep look like? What does your overall lifestyle look like? And then kind of pinpointing down what's going on, not only in your life, but also within your body biochemically and reversing some of that. So to get the blood pressure down, but without having to take that pill.
That's interesting. And I'm hearing you and I can almost hear some listeners saying like, oh, that's going to be a podcast that will tell me to do work. I know that if I feel that somewhere, someone is feeling it. Because when we talk about that, we're so used to having the instant pill. I have something, just give me a pill and I want to get rid of it. But really, we all know that, it takes a bit more work if you really want to go to the root cause, but then it's not just a Band-Aid. You're not just temporarily fixing something. I always laugh when, some people will take pills for cholesterol, but then they're at a fast food joint. You're like, but it's because we don't adjust what's wrong and we're just taking the pill. So it is some work to go and dig where it comes from, but it's totally worth it. So give me an idea of like, if I go see you and I'm like, Sarah, I have anxiety. And actually it's true. I've had anxiety my whole life. I just learned how to manage it differently. And yes, I looked for the magic pill for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. I turned to alcohol to also calm it down. I self-medicated. So I've looked at everything besides, what was causing it and how to not have it. So if I go see you, let's start there. How would it go?
Well, so our practice is different than conventional medicine. We start out with functional medicine testing, which actually is very different than conventional medicine testing. So we kind of dig deep down into what is really, like I said, biochemically going on, testing nutrient levels, hormone levels. If your hormones are out of whack, your anxiety can be through the roof, particularly like with cortisol, which is your stress hormone. If you're having persistently high level of cortisol, or cortisol spikes at the wrong time, you're going to feel anxious. So if your cortisol is spiking at night when it should be spiking in the morning, you're going to have trouble going to sleep. And so kind of figuring out how your bio-individuality is the word I like to use, how you're specifically made and how your body is functioning. We can tweak things with diet and exercise and lifestyle changes to help rebalance the hormone levels and completely get rid of your symptoms.
That's almost like magical. When I hear that, because especially anxiety, not that we're doing a podcast on anxiety, but anxiety and stress, pretty much everyone that I speak with, we all at some point say, oh, I'm so anxious or I'm so stressed. It's almost something that we have accepted that it's part of our life. So let's just deal with it. So to hear like you can get rid of it, I'm like, that's a magical word.
Yeah.
So what kind of testing do you do?
So it's a little bit individual for each person, but basic testing that I do for pretty much everybody is actually DNA testing. So DNA testing has come a long way. It's more than just a bunch of little letters on a paper saying you're 2% Irish and 10% African and whatever, which is really cool to find out your ancestry, but we can actually use it as a blueprint of how your body works. So for example, methylation is a really big thing. So it's how your body detoxifies and breaks down hormones and toxins in your body. And so if you are a poor methylator, you're a slow metabolizer of toxins, you're going to be more affected by things and they're going to build up more easily in your body versus somebody who's a fast metabolizer. So for example, I drink half a glass of wine and I get hungover. I've just learned this about myself. I'm a slow methylator, slow metabolizer of those kinds of things. Whereas my best friend, she can drink a whole bottle and nothing. She's a very fast metabolizer and methylator. And so she processes things a lot more quickly in that way. When you're a slow metabolizer of your hormones, you also may not make as many of them. So it may put you at higher risk of having depression symptoms and anxiety symptoms and things like that. And so it all understanding how your body is made and processing, there are things that you can eat to help increase the methylation. For example, broccoli helps with that. So, just incorporating broccoli into your weekly routine is going to help process some of those things, and some supplements and things like that as well. But it goes all the way deep down to what is your cardiovascular risk? What is your hormones? Not just like the methylation, but estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. What is your sleep? What are you programmed to sleep for? Like there's a difference between people who have trouble sleeping because they have trouble falling with sleep versus people who have trouble sleeping because they wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning wide awake. They're completely different problems. And so being able to pinpoint exactly what's going on, we can target treatments for that specific thing.
That's so interesting. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, it is super, super interesting. And really, like, if you ever wanted a blueprint for you, like, it's amazing. It's amazing. Gut testing. So the gut microbiome, I don't know how much you're aware of this, but our gut microbiome plays a huge role in our overall health. And so 80% of chronic disease is targeted to the gut or related to gut health. And so if you have imbalance in the gut bacteria there, we can determine that and treat it if you have a parasite or overgrowth or things like that. Food intolerance testing, as well as just micronutrient and toxin testing. So like our water supply is contaminated, are your fillings, your mercury fillings, are they leaking and causing mercury to leak into your body and become toxic? that can cause brain dysfunction and dementia. Like all these little pieces that you can go to your regular doctor, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. And I know because I did that. I went to my regular doctor and said, I want these tested. And she's like, we don't do that.
I know, especially food intolerances. They're like, well, you're allergic or you're not, but there's a whole spectrum in between of like not feeling well when you're eating something. Doesn't mean you're going to have like an episode or hives or whatever, but it's intolerances. And I find that this is more and more common. And I find it so interesting what you're saying. And yes, I do want a blueprint. And I think that everyone, should have one, because I'm listening to you now. And, the company I work with also produces prebiotics and probiotics. And it's something that I suggest to everyone, but I assume that not everyone needs the same, like listening to you now, like not everyone needs the same basic probiotics and prebiotics, and not everyone needs the same basic vitamins. So, we may be taking stuff that we don't really need, or not taking it properly. And so, because I know a lot of people that, including me, spend quite a bit in supplements, but if you're not taking the proper ones and properly, basically you're throwing your money out of the window.
Yeah. And some cases, even like with medical therapy, you don't want to take something you don't really need, because it can adversely affect your body or cause toxicity or interact with something. So, I think test, don't guess, and that way, and you can have targeted therapy towards what you exactly need. And it changes over time. Like, we were talking about stress. And so whether you're in early stressed out stage versus late stressed out stage, the supplements or the support that your body needs is completely different. And so there's not, ashwagandha is typically thought of as stress, but in the later stages of stress, it's actually not helpful. And so you wouldn't want to take the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Yeah, see, I'm like, this is one thing that for me, I clued in fast. That's one thing that creates anxiety in me. And, although people will be like, oh, take some, it's amazing for you. It took me a while to realize it. But so, yes, I do get what you're saying 100%. And before continuing, because I know we will talk about, the 3 phases of stress, and it goes way deeper than the little tips that you will give here. But before going into that, I really want to know, what made you go from conventional medicine to, completely diving into holistic medicine and viewing things differently?
Yeah, it's quite a jump. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of my colleagues think that some of the things I'm doing are crazy, but, in cardiology, everything is very research backed. Everything has a clinical trial for every single medication, every single thing that I test, that I ordered. Everything has a guideline, data-driven decision behind it. And that's the thing that I love about functional medicine over just kind of like a holistic approach, is because there is data behind functional medicine. They have done studies. They have shown that these specific tests and supplements actually work in clinical trials. And so there is data behind this. For me personally, it was my own story. I am a nurse practitioner, professional woman. I have 3 young children. My oldest has autism and ADHD, which for the first 5-6 years of her life, we couldn't figure out what was going on. We just knew that everything that we tried wasn't working. And when you have a kindergartner still tantruming for 45 minutes at a time because you gave her the wrong plate, something's wrong, but you don't know what. And so it took a lot of time, and it took a lot of trips to the doctor, the psychologist, to kind of figure things out, and then to finally get her treatment. But in the meantime, you go in mom mode of everybody else is first and you put yourself last. And so that's really what I did. I showed up for my patients every day. I showed up for my colleagues every day. I showed up for my daughters every day. My husband traveled. He was gone a lot, so it was really just me. And eventually it took its toll. And so I reached burnout. And that's when I started having physical manifestations of burnout, and to a degree that it started affecting my neurologic system. And I have something called cervical dystonia, which is where my brain wiring, it's really not very well understood, and there's no treatment or no cure for it. But the brain wiring from the stress has wired a bunch of neurons together where I have these chronic muscle contractions. It started out in my neck, and then it started spreading, and it's extremely painful. The only treatment that conventional medicine has is Botox injections. And let me tell you, it is not fun to get 30 shots into a muscle that is tensed up. It is extremely painful. It came with a lot of side effects. And in fact, I think in some ways it made things worse. And so I just knew I did not want to have 30 shots in my neck and my back for the rest of my life every 3 months. That wasn't going to work for me. And I saw probably 7 neurologists seeking different opinions and treatment options, and nobody had anything. And then I found, then this coincidentally occurred at the same time where I had this realization in cardiology clinic about everything I'm teaching to my patients is rooted in inflammation. And so I found functional medicine at that point, and then I was just hooked, because it was all the little tiny pieces of everything I'd learned in nurse practitioner school and nursing school and all the medical conferences I've attended that weren't quite explained. All the little missing pieces that just were never quite explained. It just clicked at that point.
Well, I'm sorry that you went through that and you're still going through that, but I assume that now with your own care, it's better and it's more tolerable and everything.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I went through the whole gamut. I ended up with gut dysfunction from taking too much ibuprofen, and it was terrible. It was really terrible.
Oh goodness, so many questions I would want to ask here, but let's stay on track. Because you just mentioned ibuprofen, and that's Advil basically, and I feel like people are like just using that as candy is almost like, you have something, it's like, take Advil,
exactly.
To the point that my kids are like, Mom, can you buy some more? And I'm like, why? I don't know, this hurts, whatever. It's like, it's a philosophy of just like, just take it and you'll be fine. It fixes everything. If you don't know what you have, take some, you'll feel better. But so it's interesting to hear that, you can also take too much and it can actually play against you. So, but that's going to be another podcast. Let's talk about, so if someone is listening to you now and feel like they have stress in their life, which means everyone, because, there's good stress and there's bad stress, but clearly stress is a needed thing in our life to also make us productive, but it can also be like one of the most harmful things. So how can we self-evaluate, not to make a diagnosis, but just to know like, what's our stress level? Because I know you have the 3 phases. So can you share that with us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that you said is really important to reiterate. Not all stress is bad, and we absolutely need stress in our life. It helps us meet deadlines. It helps motivate us to get up and go for a run or a walk. It helps to, it helps to get things done. It helps productivity. And so having the mindset that stress is bad, I think, is the first step towards going down the spiral of stress or down the curve of stress towards burnout. And so really flipping the mindset and understanding that stress is not inherently bad. It's our perception to stress. That is key. So, early stress is where, like, phase 1 stress is where, so if you think of a bell curve, so it goes up and then down. And so kind of at the top over here is optimal stress. So you have enough stress where you feel like you're productive, that you're getting the things that you want to get done, but you don't feel so overwhelmed and anxious and fraught with, I got to get this done kind of feeling. Below that level is where things are not stressful enough. So you have no motivation. You're sitting around watching TV all day long and just, nothing ever gets done. And so it's really about finding that optimal balance of where things are productive for you. So once you start going down the hill towards burnout, you start to feel a little bit wired but tired. You might start to predict that if I keep going, I'm just going to crash. You might feel very anxious, irritable, high-strung. You're sleepless, so you have trouble going to sleep, but you're not fatigued yet. You just feel stressed all the time. You're kind of on edge, is what my husband would say. You're on edge. What can we do? You're on edge today. And so you kind of have that feeling of just being stressed all the time. And little things start to bother you, like your kids didn't put their shoes away, or they didn't hang up their backpack and they just dumped it in front of the front door. Those kinds of things. So that's kind of early stage. And if you can recognize that and reframe the situation, you can very easily go back into the ideal stress part section. And so kind of at that point, reframing is really helpful, as well as taking time and stress management techniques, which we can talk about some of those. Once you get past phase one, you're not able to as quickly go back into normal stage. You're hitting stage 2. So you're just kind of tired all the time, but you're not exhausted yet. You feel that things are just stressed all the time, and just kind of more of a prediction of, I'm going down. This can't keep on. I'm going down. And so then the late stage, or stage 3, is where you hit burnout. And that's kind of down at the bottom of the curve. And you're just so exhausted, so fatigued. You have trouble waking up in the morning. You can't wait to get into bed at night. You lack motivation. You don't care anymore. You have that apathy. And then you have trouble sleeping. You're so tired, but you can't sleep. And I remember thinking when I was in burnout, like, I got to make it till 7:00 when I can get the kids in bed so I can go to bed. Like literally counting down the minutes until I could get myself in bed, or get the kids in bed so I could go to bed. And then in the morning, I would sleep for 10 or 12 hours at night, and I would just be exhausted the next day, and it didn't matter. And then it got to a point where the things that used to bother me, that used to make me really angry and irritable, I just didn't even care anymore. I didn't want to go out with friends. I didn't want to go out for a date night with my husband. I didn't want to take my kids to the park. I didn't want to do any of that stuff. So that apathy piece really kicked in. And so now I am back to normal stress, to early stage stress, but I'm able to recognize when my stress levels are starting to kick in again, and put in my stress relieving techniques that work for me, and kind of get myself back out of that before I get all the way back down the curve again.
And you said something, like you get up and you're tired. I hear it so often. Yes, from some friends of mine, or from me, or whatever. It's like, especially parents, I should say, just because I'm surrounded by a lot of parents. We feel like, oh my gosh, can I just go on a deserted island for a week and just sleep? Like, not even a deserted island, just rent me a hotel room wherever, and I just want to go sleep for a week. Yeah. But we kind of laugh it off. My girlfriends and I will make plans like, where could we just fly away and never come back? But anyway, this is all in our imagination. But the point to this is, that's a big sign of like you're pushing yourself too much. And I know that when we're a mom or a dad or whatever, and you have your job and you're this and you're that, you don't see how you can put the brakes, because there's no spots in your life where you can actually put the brakes. The kids still need to go to school. They still need to do their activities. You still need to do your job. You still need to bring in money. The house still needs to be clean, and you still need to feed your family. It's a legal requirement. So yeah, for me, suppers, I was at a point of like, that's the word that I hated the most. I think I was just like, oh my goodness. But how do you get out of this spiral? Like when you're in it and because I don't think that what am I trying to say? I don't think that we picture ourselves like I'm going towards burnout. We just picture ourselves as, I'm a busy mom. Mm-hmm. I'm a busy entrepreneur. I'm a busy, like busy is so in these days, mm-hmm. But we don't see ourselves going towards burnout, but that's exactly where it's going.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right. I completely agree. We use stress and busy as a badge of honor. Like, oh, I'm so busy. I have to do this, 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 and this, and this, and this, and this. And the more busy you are, the more important we feel, or we think we appear to other people. And so I think the first step is kind of taking a moment to actually recognize what's going on with your body and what your body is trying to tell you. I didn't know I was in burnout. I'm a healthcare provider. I didn't know I was in burnout at first. And it took me researching this on my own and learning like, oh my God, I am in burnout. This is what's really going on with me. And my cortisol levels were all over the map and not in the right place. And I was tired in the middle of the afternoon, and I was drinking way too much coffee, and I wasn't exercising and not sleeping and all these things. But I think once I realized all of that, I was able to understand and pay attention and then start to reverse some of those things. So for me personally, I started incorporating mindfulness into my day because I don't have time. I did not have time. I would love to go to a yoga thing, for an hour every day. I don't have time for that. I don't. And so I started doing mindfulness. I do mindfulness when I was driving on my way to work. I would do mindfulness on my way to pick up the kids in the afternoon. I would do my mindfulness when I was laying down in bed at night and when I first woke up in the morning. And then, just random times throughout the day over lunch. And it only takes a minute or two to incorporate some of this. And so, or when I was in the shower, just standing there for a minute with your eyes closed, just feeling the water run down your back, down your hair. What does that feel like? Getting in touch with your senses just for a minute. That's all it takes. And so, sitting at a stoplight, what do my feet feel like right now? What do my shoes feel like right now? What do my legs feel like right now? Am I feeling tense in my shoulders? Am my head hurting? All these things, and just kind of checking in. And then over time, it started to unwind. And then what happened for me was that all the little stresses that added up during the day, I started being able to let them go. Mm-hmm. So I remember having a conversation with my brother. And this, again, was a time before we really had a true understanding of what was going on with my oldest and her autism and ADHD. And her ADHD is pretty severe, her symptoms. And so he's like, your kids would drive me insane. How do you not let it bother you? And I'm like, well, it does. He's like, but it doesn't look like it. And then I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, well, it does in the moment, but it doesn't anymore. Whereas like a year prior to that, I totally would have been sitting with me all day. I would have been at lunch being upset because my daughter threw a 45-minute tantrum and I was late to work that day. And now I felt stressed all day long because I was late starting out my day, and I had a fight with my daughter, and, and then I was late for my first appointment, which ran late for the second appointment. And like, it just would build throughout the day. But once I started doing this mindfulness work, it didn't. And then it didn't add up. And then the stress started becoming less and less.
So a big part of that too is the perspective. And, I like what you're saying, mindfulness. So if I'm hearing it all good, you have to really check the biochemistry of your body first. And we're all individuals. So it's, Google is not a doctor. So diagnose yourself with whatever, but, we are all individuals and we react differently to different things. But I guess that when you have this piece figured out, and then you also incorporate mindfulness, and you know what, in pretty much any field, experts of any field that I'm speaking with, the thing that always comes back is breathing and mindfulness. Yes. Whatever you're trying to achieve, these are two things that we should all, really master, to the point that I'm like, I don't know why they're not teaching it in school to kids, especially now. Like kids are more rambunctious than they used to be because of that's a whole other podcast as well. Well, ADHD is way more present than it was, when I was a kid. And that's not 100 years ago. It's not a little bit ago. So, how can we easily integrate some breathing in our day without, because for me, honestly, like I've said it so much that people were laughing. They were like, Carolyn, you need to do yoga or you need to breathe or meditate. And I'm like, I can't do that. It stresses me too much. Like for me, sitting still and breathing, it's almost torture. Or meditating, it's almost torture. Not anymore because, I've worked on it and now I see the benefits from it. But at first, I started with just trying to breathe for 10 seconds and that was torture. So how can we start like slowly and incorporate it in our day?
Yeah. So kind of in the same way that, so along with the mindfulness is breathing. And absolutely. One of my favorite exercises is box breathing. Are you familiar with this?
No, go ahead. Explain it to us.
Yeah. So if you think of a box, it has 4 sides. So you want to control your breath. So you breathe in for 4, you hold your breath for 4, you breathe out for 4, and then hold your breath for 4. And so, just slowing everything down, syncing it with your heartbeat. So if you're able to feel your heartbeat, holding your breath for 4 heartbeats, and then breathing out over 4 heartbeats, it really stimulates the parasympathetic nerve, which is the rest and relaxation. So it's the opposite of the fight or flight cortisol. So you're working when you're feeling stressed and you stimulate this parasympathetic nerve, you're actually slowing everything down. You're lowering your cortisol levels. You're taking the edge off of everything in the moment, and those benefits stay with you. And so, just doing a couple box breathings first thing in the morning or over your lunch break or at night before bed, or in the moment you're sitting in traffic for the 18,000th time and the person in front of you won't go and you just miss the light again, great time to do the box breathing.
Oh, that's a good example.
So you don't have to be anywhere. It doesn't take a lot of time and it's really easy to incorporate in the day. And if you get to a point where 4 counts is not enough for you, extend it. But the key to that would be to have longer exhalations and shorter inhalations. So you would want to maybe breathe in for 5, hold for 7, and breathe out for 8, which sounds like a lot. But you can get there. You can get there. And there are lots of other ways to reduce stress: journaling, meditation. Meditation is so well studied in the literature and the benefits are innumerable. The thing I want to make sure people understand about meditation, it is normal for your mind to wander. And I always thought I was doing it wrong because my mind was wandering. That is normal. And the more you do it over time, the more easily you'll be able to direct your mind to your breath or your internally, and that will decrease. And the amount of time, you don't have to do it for 20 minutes at a sitting. Start with 5.
Yes. And one thing that I love that someone told me, because I go walk in the forest every single day, like I have 3 dogs. So walking is not an option.
Amazing. Yeah.
But I was always like, I can't stop and meditate. And that person told me, like, because I'm like, when I'm in the forest, that's where I feel safe, peaceful. There's days that I'm just like, I'm moving in the forest and I'm sitting there. But it's because I realize that's a place that I kind of meditate walking. I have no sound. It's like really nature. It's like me and my dog and that's it. So that's a type of meditating as well. Because
absolutely.
If you're like me, you can't just sit still and do meditating. So there's different types. Like don't corner yourself into just like, I need to be like her or do this, or, you take one class and you're like, that's it. I just can't do it. So for me, that was a relief when she told me that. I was like, oh, well, I'm doing that every single day. And it just makes total sense because, those walks calm me down. They actually they make me more productive because there's ideas that will come there when I'm in the forest that I don't have if I'm sitting at my desk. So it's just it's another type of meditating, but it's not necessarily. So if you like riding your bike or running, that could be your type of meditation as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a name for that. It's called forest bathing.
Oh, there you go. Forest bathing. Mm-hmm. I do it often.
That's awesome.
Every single day. So Sarah, if people want to reach you and ask you how you can help them individually, because you do coach people. I say coach, but it's not that at all. It's you do consult with people individually. Where can they reach you?
So I'm on Instagram as well as a website, and our company is called Peak Integrative Wellness. And so it's at Peak Integrative Wellness and www.peakintegrativewellness.com. On my website, I've got a free stress reduction handout for anybody who'd like that. So you can just go in there and download that. And
I find that, it's good to also consult the person, because there's so much information out there and there's so much, free little things that you can get and try yourself. And yes, it's beneficial. Mm-hmm. But I find that the part that is missing to that is accountability and, keeping you on track. So seeing someone like you and consulting someone like you keeps you more on track, accountable, and, I'm sure gives higher results. And I completely lost what I was going to say. My brain went blank. So I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the benefits of working with myself or any other, health professional, health coach, is because we can use our experience and nail down exactly what's going to work for you. We're all individuals. We're bio-individual. We're unique in that way. And so what works for one person is not going to work for the next person. And so figuring out what diet you should be on, that's another thing that's on that DNA test, is it tells you, for some people, keto is best. Some people, paleo is best. Some people, vegan is best. It really helps narrow down what diet you should be on. And so being able to nail all that down, it cuts the trial and error time out. And really just, you can focus on what's going to work for you.
That's awesome. And that's what I was going to ask you. It came back. So we can do all of that through Zoom. We don't need to go see you in person, right?
Exactly. I work with clients from all over the world. So
that's so amazing. So awesome. Well, Sarah, it was such a pleasure to have you. And I will ask you, what would you like to leave people with? Your last words?
I'm on a mission of empowerment. I think that really aligns with you as well. I really want to empower people to know that they have the power to change their life, whether it's your health or your mental health or your well-being or the situation that you're in, socially with a partner or, whatever. You have the power to be able to change that. And so my goal is to really empower people to live their best life in a healthful way and take control of that.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sarah Anderson. So I will put all of Sarah's information with the podcast and reach out to her. She's amazing. And for everyone who wants to reach me, info@simplycaroline.com. If you have questions, suggestions, or whatever, I read my emails personally. Yes, that adds to the stress sometimes, but I love actually reading your emails. So thank you. And thank you all for being here this week. And we'll see you again next week. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Bye.